Doctors of Reddit, with lots of people claiming to have mask exemptions. Have any doctors out there actually granted an exemption from wearing masks? What were your reasons? Did the exemption really outweigh the benefits of wearing a mask? I've heard of 3 exemptions for masks that actually hold water, and all of them are extremely rare. The first is people without use of their arms who couldn't remove the mask in an emergency, like it got wet and prevented them from breathing. This also includes babies. The second is people with extensive open wounds on their face that would be agitated by masks, like recent burn victims. The third is people with incredibly disfigured faces for whom a mask that fit properly would be impossible to find, so wearing a mask would be pretty useless. Those are the only exemptions I found. My friend was born without ears and she still wears a mask. She just ties it around her head. My doctor offered it to me for trigeminal neuralgia, intense nerve pain when anything touches my face or scalp, but I can tolerate a face shield for about 35-40 minutes, so I just do that for groceries. Not a doctor, I'm a teacher. We have a few students who are exempt from wearing masks because they are mentally incapable of understanding what's going on and would absolutely freak out if anyone tried to put something over their face. There's like 2 or 3 kids like this in the entire school of over 700 kids. Due to some weird childhood trauma, my mother absolutely freaks out when fabric touches her face. She hates the mask mandates as a result. Basically, my great aunt as punishment would hold a blanket over her with a lot of pressure and would box in all heat and make her sweat out bad behavior or sickness too, for that matter. My mom's a NP and she says unless you can't get it off in an emergency, b. have open wound severe burns, no others should apply as the mask is decently breathable. I know someone who survived polio as a child but only through half a dozen surgeries starting around 4 years old and roughly every 2 years to rebuild her legs from the remaining functioning muscles. At that point they used ether on a cone to knock you out, and as tough as this woman is, the trauma of those surgeries is so severe that wearing a mask is nearly impossible for her. I'm not even sure she was aware of how severe it was until the pandemic. I think my situation is extremely rare and uncommon, but I got an exemption from my doctor because my morning sickness made my gag reflex so sensitive that I would vomit if anything went near my face. I want to wear a mask but it's just not possible at the moment. I only leave my home for medical appointments. My medication helps with the vomiting but only prevents it. My doctor didn't believe me until I put my mask on right in front of him and immediately started upchucking. And it does not stop. If there's nothing left in my stomach, then I'll just continue to dry heave behind my mask. Honestly, don't talk about it much. Folks aren't in a place where they're very understanding at the moment. I would get harassed in the waiting room of medical appointments by other patients. Didn't matter if I wore a mask or didn't. If I wore the mask and vomited dry heave, I'd get harassed for being too sick. The absolute irony of being too sick to be in a doctor's office. If I didn't wear a mask, I'd get harassed for that. I'm pregnant. I have to go to medical appointments. It's just not an option to not go. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That sucks. Hope you feel better soon enough and can go through the rest of your pregnancy with fewer symptoms. I've encountered, we all have by now, a crap ton of people that refuse to wear masks. They all have crappy reasons. The only guy I'm kinda sympathetic towards has Asperger's and can't deal with stuff on his face, neck, head. It's a sensory overload thing. On the other hand, he also thinks COVID was engineered by the Clintons and Obama and George Soros along with the Chinese to bring communism to America. But the flu is still way more deadly. So I DK if he's being honest about not being able to wear a mask. People with Asperger's generally, but not always, are extremely honest, regardless of other people's feelings or if it will get them into trouble. So he probably does genuinely believe that the Clintons made it. An old FB friend says I have 5 autoimmunes that prevent me from wearing a mask. Nope. Doesn't work that way. I have 2 autoimmune vulnerabilities. I wear a KN95 mask if I have to go to an in-person doctor's appointment, and a surgical mask on walks when I am at a great distance from others. Otherwise, I am almost always at home. I do delivery or curbside pickup for shopping and groceries. Some people will never get it. There was a guy with a small social media following and he was getting extreme hate for wearing a mask on and off. sometimes having one, sometimes not. After a few weeks he basically made a post to say that he was sexually abused as a young boy and that his abuser would hold his hand over his mouth and nose. The mask causes PTSD-like reactions and panic attacks for him, but even he is training himself to be able to wear one by wearing one and extending how long he can each time. Nadpatai, a manual wheelchair using quadriplegic, managed to wear my mask with only minimal problems. Nothing deal breakery. I get a bit short of breath probably due to partially paralyzed diaphragm, and it takes a little bit longer to get on and off due to dexterity issues. I'm still gonna wear the mask, though technically exempt by my country's medical list. Only exemptions that seem to make sense are severe cognitive impairment, to the point of face coverings of any sort being distressing, then maybe severe asthma, breathing difficulties, and then coordination deficit. Respiratory disease doesn't stop you from wearing a mask. In fact, people with severe respiratory disease have been advised to wear masks in various situations to avoid infections and irritants for at least the last 30 years. Nurse here, absolutely not. In my opinion, if you are too sick to wear a mask, you are too sick to be going out. When we intubate our COVID patients and transfer them through the hallways of the hospital, we put a mask on them. So there's literally no excuse. When we intubate our COVID patients and transfer them through the hallways of the hospital, we put a mask on them. Yes, we freaking do. Source: am hospital transporter. If they can't wear a mask, they should be able to wear a face shield. Yes, a very few won't be able to wear either. It will be visibility obvious which those are. Where I am from, face shields are not regarded as adequate protection and most stores won't even let you in if it's all you have. I'm not a doctor and I know people are going to shout at me, but I have anxiety and I can't handle the stress of not being able to breathe. Panic attacks are caused by hyperventilating and I'm doing that by wearing a mask. I still wear one because I'm kind and it's illegal not to wear one. Thank you for powering through. I've been seeing more pushback. Signs that say if you cannot wear a mask for medical reasons, please use our curbside service or please call and we will try to assist you, or even we regret that we are unable to accommodate you at this time. I think this is one more area where mental health gets the short shaft. There are a number of mental health causes for not wearing a mask that are not visible or obvious. I know some people who have exemptions based on some of those reasons. Much like the vet who comes home after being in a war zone and can no longer tolerate the explosions of fireworks. Sometimes a trauma can cause seriously adverse reactions to any kind of facial covering, mask, shield, scarf, etc. In those cases, other precautions need to be taken. True, but nearly everyone who I know with genuine mental health issues will wear a mask anyway, even if it's quite hard for them to do. I would be exempt for many reasons, but I've been wearing one before it became law in my country. Not a doctor, but I have an older sister with severe lung cancer. She mostly stays at home because of the pandemic, but if ever she goes out, she always wears a mask. So at the people saying they can't wear a mask in public because of this medical issue, you really do not have a leg to stand on. There is no excuse. Either put a mask on, or don't leave the house. I could literally give less of a crap about your asthma. The open wounds or not being able to put on remove it would be the reasons. Thanks to your sis for wearing hers. Yes, one can breathe wearing a mask. Move to Iowa if you don't want to wear one. They barely have any restrictions. In my high school, the only exemption for not wearing a mask is that if your class is small, like 7 students and the teacher, and you all sit far away from each other, you don't have to wear a mask, otherwise it's mandatory. How did a post asking doctors their reasons for granting mask exemptions turn into mostly non-doctors giving their opinions about people who give excuses for not wearing masks? Obligatory, not a doctor, but what I have learned across many years of interacting with doctors is that they are still people. Unfortunately, this means some are extremely ignorant and have beliefs that don't actually hold up. Many are lazy or inexperienced and not driven to increase their knowledge. It is tempting to respond to their authority and training in a particular way, but I definitely know a doctor or two who have views and opinions I would never associate with somebody who successfully completed a medical degree. This reminds me of a chemistry grad who was going to do postgrad at Cambridge. She gave me 1-1 lessons on chemistry. I'm guessing they thought I was good at it and benefited from extra teaching to boost me up. And I remember her saying that climate change isn't real. Those things really open your eyes and make you question what others push on as a full fact. Number. If you believe you have a condition that excludes using a mask, stay home. If you have breathing issues bad enough to make the claim you cannot wear a mask, you will not survive COVID. You will die. You will not survive COVID. You will die. Source. I am a doc. You should have out a serious tag on this. Oh well. Seems like most people are being pretty respectful without it. The worst excuse I heard from a guy at the restaurant I work at was I have a broken leg. I'm exempt. A broken leg. Our rules aren't even that strict in my city. In restaurants, you have to have a mask on when you're standing or walking in the restaurant. If you're sitting at your table, you don't have to wear one. People throw a fit because they have to wear one for like 3 minutes maximum. Not a doctor, but I know of a nerve condition that affects the face so that pressure can cause all over body pain. So even hair brushing against their face can be extremely painful. That's the only excuse I have personally encountered that made sense. They couldn't wear a mask or a visor, so made a point of staying home entirely and shielding, though not going out at all. If someone does know the condition, feel free to comment. My mom was sexually assaulted and it happened at night in a parking lot during a torrential downpour and he tried to drown her basically. She wears a mask but every so often she has to stop and pull it down and try to catch her breath. When that happens we usually find a spot in a store or something where not a lot of people are and then tell her it's okay. Take a few deep breaths. We are almost done. Just a few more items or something. Severe anxiety and claustrophobia also severe cause for exemption that I have seen. My wife has one for FND since when she has seizures it can impede breathing. Not a doctor, but there's this one guy that always comes into my work with his service dog. When the mask mandate started, he never wore one. I asked one of my co-workers why no one was saying anything to him. She told me that he was a first responder during 9/11 and I guess him putting on a mask triggers his PTSD and whatnot. But I was like cool. If management doesn't care about him not wearing a mask, I don't either. I have no power around here. This is heartbreaking. I have asthma and got an exemption from wearing a mask. The biggest reason was I have productive sneezes. When I sneeze, mucus comes out, and that makes it hard to breathe through the mask. Not only that but the mask is cold, clammy and slimy. I wear a mask but if I feel a sneeze coming on I'll leave the area, pull my mask down and sneeze into my arm. I put my mask back up and go about my business. This is not a valid reason for not wearing a mask, but at least you're wearing a mask until you sneeze, which you should doing into the mask since that's why it exists, and then switching it out for a clean one after. I'm curious about people that have low oxygen sats levels. I was sat near someone on a train who had an exemption, only person I have seen, and that would have been my guess for her as her breathing was very audible. Sounded like she had a crisp packet in her lungs. Spoiler, if you can't wear a mask because of an underlying medical condition, it isn't safe for you to be out in public in the plague times, period. Spoiler, bulls, because there are multiple valid reasons given in the other comments here. Not a doctor but there's a thing called GERD in which your breath can become slightly acidic. It's nothing to worry about unless you're wearing a mask in which case it gets concentrated in one area. The exemptions where I am are for young children, autistic people who couldn't tolerate a mask, people with PTSD from suffocation or strangling who can't tolerate things over their faces. I've personally never given an exemption letter. The advice is to stay home if you can't wear a mask. My dad has quite a few issues so he got one cause whenever he does for more than a few minutes he has a panic attack cause he feels he can't breathe. So I'd definitely for him it's worth it. EMT. My medic partner of almost 2 years was absolutely amazing at his job and very knowledgeable in other fields. Unfortunately he was a massive Trump supporter and when the pandemic first hit he believed it was part of some grand scheme by the Democrats to rig the upcoming election in their favor. When we started getting COVID positive patients left and right his opinion changed. He had no choice but to wear a mask with each patient and full PPE with each COVID-19 patient. Otherwise he'd be put on suspension. He did tell me he was refusing to wear one in his personal life and was working on getting a medical exemption from his personal care physician. My cousin's kid has severe autism. You put a mask on him, he's going to go into full meltdown. This time has been very difficult for them as they don't want to take him out in public for obvious reasons, but the isolation is making his condition worse. He has a doctor's note exempting him for a mask, but it's understandably difficult to explain to people who will just assume he's not complying. Primary care doc. Never written one. Only ever got about 4 requests. Simply explaining to them why they need to wear them and demonstrating that it's not hurting them seemed to solve it in person. Over the phone or online, not a chance in heck you can change someone's opinion on it. People attempting to use this excuse are scum. If you really have a breathing problem, then you will not be out and about in public. We're all onto you and your pathetic, sad mindset. No, you're not special because you do not want to have your freedoms and rights impeded by having to mask up. No, you do not get to invent crap just so you don't have to obey PPE requirements that businesses post for everyone. And yes, these businesses have every legal right to remove you from the premises if you don't follow the rules. Grow up, mask up, live to see tomorrow. Not a doctor, I've called BS on some people. I have pretty bad asthma and can tolerate masks. People talk about how they get out of breath, which I've had that issue. It's easy, you step away somewhere for a moment where you can pull it down to get a deep breath in. TA freaking DA. Only other time I've had to pull it away from my face again, I've always stepped outside or somewhere alone, is with very strong smells like excessive hand sanitizer gets stuck in the mask and can sometimes set off a minor attack. It takes me all of 2 minutes to get my crap together. I ain't no doctor, but judging by these replies, it's if you have severe wounds on your face that would be excruciatingly painful to touch. So, to avoid wearing a mask, just apply a hot iron to your face, and your doctor should let you off the hook. S for any who may need it. I'm a doc. People have asked me exemptions. My answer is generally that the only medical reason not to wear a mask is if you do not possess an upper airway tract. And in that case you should shove a mask where the wind does still blow. I do not say the second part of that sentence out loud. Seriously, if you are short of breath with a mask, you may need to have that checked out, and it's probably safer to stay inside in the meantime. And if you say it hurts you, good news. There are dozens of different systems on the market, so you're bound to find one which doesn't hurt you. Statistically speaking, areas that wear masks and areas that don't wear masks see the same types of numbers of COVID cases. That would imply that 1. Masks don't work, or 2. We in a free society can't reach the percentage of enough PPL to properly wear a mask that offsets the speed that COVID is transmitted. Look at Japan. Everybody wears a mask properly and they have very few cases. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.